Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling a question that's probably, crossed all of our minds at some point. How can we be sure of anything at all? Like, how do we know anything is actually real?
It's a question that's been puzzling philosophers,
Mm-hmm.
like literally for centuries.
Hmm.
And we're going to kind of explore it through the work of two philosophical heavyweights. We're going to start with René Descartes.
Yeah, okay. Now you're probably hearing that and thinking, Descartes, isn't he, isn't that the I think, therefore I am guy?
Yeah.
And you'd be right. But to really get what he means by that, we kind of have to understand this wild thought experiment he used to get to that statement.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where this whole Ippelman argument comes in, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, like, picture this. What if, like, everything you experience, like the sights, the sounds, even like the feeling of this podcast playing through your headphones, what if it's all just an illusion?
Right.
Like some elaborate illusion crafted by this mischievous, all-powerful demon.
It's like that moment, I always think about that moment in The Matrix
Oh, yeah.
when Morpheus offers Neo the red pill and the blue pill.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you take the blue pill,
Yeah.
whatever, you wake up, you believe whatever you want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But Descartes is basically asking, how do you know you're not living in the Matrix
Right.
right now?
But instead of AI, it's this sneaky little demon, like, pulling the strings, right? Making you doubt even the most basic truths about, like, reality. And Descartes even uses this example of someone being hypnotized into skipping the number 7 when they count, you know?
Which is, I mean, that's such a simple but effective illustration
Mm-hmm.
because it seems impossible, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
almost everyone knows that 7 comes after 6.
Yeah.
But when you're in that altered state, suddenly your senses are telling you something different, and it shows you how easily we can be tricked.
Exactly. So if our senses can be fooled like that, then how can we be certain about anything else?
Right. Now, you might be thinking that all of this is getting a little too Black Mirror for a Tuesday afternoon, but hold on. Like, there's a method to Descartes' madness. He's not just trying to, like, freak us out. Right. He's not, like, trying to convince us that we're all living in some demon-controlled simulation.
Right.
He's using this thought experiment as a way to find, like, a foundation of absolute certainty. Like, what can we know for sure, even if everything else is up for grabs?
And that's how he arrives at his famous cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
So even if that evil demon is, like, messing with everything I perceive, the very act of me doubting it, of me thinking about this whole crazy scenario, proves that something, an I, must exist to do the thinking.
Right. It's a powerful realization. Like, even if everything around us is uncertain, that very act of thinking proves our own existence.
Yeah.
Like the one thing we can really hang our hats on.
Right. It makes you really appreciate, like, the sheer brain power of these philosophers. But here's the thing. This isn't just some dusty old philosophical idea, right? Descartes' struggle with doubt, it's incredibly relevant today, maybe even more so in our age of information overload.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Every day, you're bombarded with news, opinions, and facts from every direction.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, news feeds, podcasts. It can feel impossible to know what's true and what's not.
Totally. And it's not just external information either, right? Like, think about all the internal pressures we face to build a career, maintain relationships, to just generally figure out this whole life thing.
Yeah.
All of that can make us question ourselves, our perceptions, and ultimately what we can truly be certain of.
It's like Descartes is giving us permission, right, to kind of hit the pause button on everything we thought we knew and ask, what if? And in a world that often feels like it's moving a mile a minute, I don't know, that permission to just stop and question, it can be incredibly freeing.
Right, but I gotta say, like, constantly questioning everything, it can get kinda exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where our next philosophical rock star comes in, Immanuel Kant.
Kant. Yeah, he took a slightly different approach, like to this whole skepticism thing.
Okay.
So you know how Descartes leaves us kind of wondering if we can ever really be certain of anything beyond, like, our own existence?
Yeah.
Kant, he wants to try to build a bridge back to a world where knowledge and meaning, like, actually feel possible.
Okay, so less doom and gloom, more like a roadmap for navigating uncertainty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he starts by actually agreeing with Descartes, like he agrees that we don't have this kind of direct access to, like, the true nature of reality. And he even gives it a name. He calls it the thing in itself.
Okay.
So imagine, right? Like, there's this ultimate objective reality out there, right? But we only ever get to experience it through, like, these filters The filter of our senses and the filter of, like, our minds.
So it's kind of like we're trapped in a movie theater and we're only ever seeing the projected images, but never the actual film reel itself.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're seeing the world through, like, our own personal projector.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where Kant, I think, gets really interesting and honestly surprisingly empowering. He says that even though we can't know the thing in itself directly, our minds aren't just passively receiving information, like a blank screen.
Oh, okay. So our minds are more actively processing that information, like, say, a computer.
Yes, exactly. Think of your mind like an operating system, like Windows or iOS, right?
Right.
The world is constantly feeding you all this raw data, right?
Yeah.
Through your senses. But that operating system, like the way your mind is structured, that determines how that data is, like, interpreted, how it's organized and understood.
Okay, so it's not that the external world is meaningless, it's just that we experience it through our own personalized lens, and that lens that shapes how we understand everything.
Precisely. And Kant argued that these mental structures, these filters, right, they're not random, they're not arbitrary. He believed that they're actually universal,
Right.
like hardwired into the human mind.
Yeah.
And they're essential for us to even be able to make sense of the world. Things like time and space,
Yeah.
causality, the idea that, like, one thing causes another.
Yeah.
These aren't just things that we discover out there in the world, he says. He's like, no, they're fundamental ways that our minds organize our experiences.
So instead of being these passive observers, just kind of like taking in the world as it truly is, we're active participants, and our minds are actually like shaping the very fabric of our reality.
You got it. Like, we're not just watching the movie. We're constantly, like, editing it in our heads.
Oh, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a mind-bending idea when you really start thinking about it. Like, if we're always filtering reality through our own minds in this way, does that mean we're kind of like trapped in our own little worlds? Like, never able to truly connect with others or like really understand things objectively?
Totally. I mean, that's a question I think a lot of people ask it. It's a valid concern for sure.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Kant, right? He doesn't actually see this whole subjective experience thing as, like, a dead end.
Oh, okay.
Like, he actually finds something, I think, incredibly powerful and honestly incredibly liberating in it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So he argues that true meaning and purpose, right, they don't actually come from, like, perfectly knowing some external objective reality. They come from those internal structures, right? The values, the principles that we use to kind of organize our lives and make choices.
So instead of being like paralyzed by the fact that we might never fully grasp this whole thing in itself, we should focus more on like building a meaningful life within like the framework of our own minds. It's almost like choosing to design our own matrix in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, like Kant believes that's where true freedom actually lies. You know, it's not about uncovering some, like, ultimate objective truth that exists, like, independently of us out there somewhere. It's about recognizing the power of our own minds to shape our experience, to create meaning, and to connect with other people, even within the context of our own individual perspectives.
It's like instead of desperately searching for that one universal answer key to life, right? We realize that we each have the power to actually write our own.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. But how does that actually play out in real life? You know, what does that actually look like?
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Like, we make choices every single day, right, based on incomplete information. Like, we can't ever really know for certain, you know, what the absolute best decision is in every single situation. But we can use our values, you know, our experiences, our goals to guide us. We create routines, you know, we commit to relationships even though we can't predict the future.
So we're like embracing the uncertainty and just kind of using our internal compass to navigate. It's like we acknowledge that we're editing that movie in our heads, but we're choosing to make it a movie actually worth watching.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance, right? Between questioning everything like Descartes taught us to do, you know, question everything, but don't be afraid to also trust your own judgment, you know, and to use that to create a life that really aligns with what you value.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today.
I know.
From like doubting the very existence of like the outside world to like recognizing the power of our own minds to like shape our reality. It's been quite the journey.
It really highlights how relevant these, you know what I mean, these what can seem like kind of abstract philosophical ideas, how relevant they are to like our everyday lives, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And while we might not have, you know, all the answers. And let's face it, where's the fun in that, right? Hopefully this deep dive has given like everyone listening some new ways to think about like how you know what you know.
Yeah, and maybe even empowered you to kind of trust your own judgment a little bit more.
Exactly. So the next time you're feeling unsure or like overwhelmed by like information overload, just remember what we learned today from Descartes and Kant, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to question everything, but don't be afraid to trust your own judgment, your values, your ability to create meaning in a world that might always be a little uncertain.
A little bit, yeah.
Until next time, everyone keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.